Have you ever found yourself adrift in a sea of lethargy, staring at a mountain of unread emails, undone tasks, and unfulfilled dreams, yet utterly incapable of summoning the energy to move? It's a pervasive modern malady, often misdiagnosed as mere laziness. Society, with its relentless pursuit of productivity, often condemns those who falter, labeling them as lacking discipline or drive. But what if this profound inertia, this deep-seated resistance to action, isn't a moral failing but a symptom of something far more profound? What if the wellspring of your vitality has simply run dry, not from physical exertion, but from a deeper, unseen drain on your very essence? Imagine the life of Alara, a woman who, on the surface, appeared to have it all: a burgeoning career in a creative field, a vibrant social circle, and a meticulously curated apartment that whispered tales of sophisticated taste. Yet, beneath this polished exterior, a silent battle raged. Each morning, the weight of the day pressed down on her before she even opened her eyes. The vibrant hues of her life began to mute, fading into a dull gray. Conversations, once stimulating, felt like Herculean efforts. The joy she once found in her art, in connection, in simply being, had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow ache. Alara's colleagues, initially sympathetic, began to whisper, "She's just not motivated anymore," one would remark. "Too comfortable," maybe, another would suggest. Even her closest friends, baffled by her withdrawal, offered well-meaning but ultimately unhelpful advice. "Just push through it," or "You need a vacation." But vacations only seemed to deepen the chasm. The rest she sought never truly arrived, for her exhaustion wasn't physical. It was a gnawing weariness that permeated her very soul. One crisp autumn evening, as the city lights blurred outside her window, Alara found herself staring at a blank canvas, a brush suspended uselessly in her hand. The vibrant colors in her palette seemed to mock her, brimming with possibilities she couldn't access. A tear, hot and unexpected, traced a path down her cheek. "What's wrong with me?" she whispered to the empty room. "Why can't I just do something?" Her mind, usually a bustling marketplace of ideas, felt like a desolate wasteland. Every decision, no matter how small, felt monumental. Choosing an outfit, responding to a text, even deciding what to eat became an exhausting internal debate. This wasn't the Alara anyone knew. The woman who once thrived on spontaneity and passion was now a prisoner in her own mind, a mind that echoed with the taunt of lazy. The insidious nature of her exhaustion lay in its invisibility. There were no feverish brows, no aching limbs that a doctor could diagnose. It was a malaise of the spirit, a deep existential fatigue that spoke not of physical depletion, but of a profound disconnect. She had spent years outwardly conforming, adapting, and striving, often at the expense of her authentic self. The subtle erosions of her boundaries, the small compromises of her values, the constant striving for external validation, these were the silent culprits. She was living a life that, while outwardly successful, was deeply incongruent with her inner truth. The whispers in her mind weren't just about laziness. They were projections of the very societal judgment she feared. She was caught in a self-perpetuating cycle. The more spiritually drained she became, the less capable she felt, and the more she internalized the external accusations of sloth. This was the shadow at play, an unacknowledged part of herself that had been neglected, suppressed, and now demanded attention. The vibrant energy she once possessed had been siphoned off, not by overwork, but by the relentless effort of maintaining a facade, of being who she thought she should be, rather than who she truly was. The emotional labor of pretending, of suppressing genuine feelings, had taken a far greater toll than any physical exertion ever could. Alara's journey exemplifies the archetype of the wounded healer in reverse, a soul in desperate need of healing itself. Her struggle with pervasive lethargy, masked as laziness, reveals a deeper theme of spiritual incongruence and the silent toll of unexpressed authenticity. She is a character grappling with the psychological depth of ego projection, where societal expectations and self-criticism become externalized judgments. The solution, for those who find themselves mirroring Ilara's plight, lies not in more effort, but in profound self-compassion and courageous introspection. You, too, may be experiencing this profound spiritual exhaustion. Recognize that your inertia is not a weakness, but a potent signal. It is your inner self, your neglected anima or animus, screaming for attention, demanding that you reclaim your authentic power. Begin by shedding the weight of external expectations. Question every should and must that dictates your actions. Embrace the stillness, for it is in this quietude that genuine insights emerge. This is your invitation to embark on a journey of individuation, a process of becoming the whole, unique individual you were always meant to be. Release the need to justify your state to others. Your path to healing is an internal one, and the first step is always self-acceptance. Dare to listen to the whispers of your soul. They hold the key to unlocking the vibrant energy that lies dormant within you. We've explored the subtle yet devastating toll of spiritual exhaustion, a profound depletion often mistaken for mere laziness. But if it isn't laziness, what is it? Truly, the heart of this insidious weariness often lies in the unexamined narratives we carry, the echoes of past experiences that dictate our present reality. It's the invisible chains of unaddressed trauma and the eroded foundation of self-worth that silently sap our vitality. Have you ever considered that the very wellspring of your energy is being poisoned by the unacknowledged wounds of your past? Carl Jung, with his profound understanding of the unconscious, spoke of the shadow, that hidden, repressed, and often negative aspect of the personality that we refuse to acknowledge. He asserted, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This profound statement cuts to the core of spiritual exhaustion. For many, the drain isn't from overt, dramatic traumas, but from a lifetime of subtle emotional injuries, unacknowledged slights, and the constant suppression of authentic impulses. Consider the pervasive cultural narrative that often tells women they must be everything to everyone. Nurturing caregiver, successful professional, flawless partner, and serene homemaker. This constant pressure to perform, to embody an idealized archetype, can lead to a deep fracturing of the self. Each time a woman silences her own needs to meet another's expectation, each time she dismisses her intuition in favor of external validation, a small piece of her authentic self recedes into the shadow. This isn't laziness. It's the profound exhaustion of constantly denying one's true nature, of wearing a mask so long that it adheres to the skin. Think of Sarah, a woman who excelled in her demanding corporate role. She was the epitome of resilience, always taking on extra projects, mediating conflicts, and offering a compassionate ear to her colleagues. Yet, beneath this seemingly tireless exterior, Sarah was crumbling. Every boundary she attempted to set was gently, then firmly, ignored. Her empathy, a strength, was exploited. She found herself perpetually saying yes when her entire being screamed no, driven by an unconscious fear of rejection and a deep-seated belief that her worth was contingent upon her usefulness to others. This belief wasn't born overnight. It was forged in the crucible of a childhood where her emotional needs were often overlooked unless she was being good or helpful. "Why do I always feel so drained?" Sarah would lament to her reflection, her eyes hollow with a fatigue that no amount of sleep could touch. She'd start projects with a burst of enthusiasm, only to abandon them midway, convinced she lacked the discipline. The truth was, her spirit was too busy holding up the weight of unhealed past wounds. She carried an unspoken narrative that her own desires were secondary, that self-care was selfish, and that true love was earned through perpetual self-sacrifice. This was the insidious work of a fractured self-worth, deeply intertwined with her unexamined trauma psychology. The well of her vitality was constantly being depleted by the unseen leaks of unacknowledged pain. This isn't merely about remembering specific traumatic events. It's about recognizing the subtle imprints of a lifetime. It's the constant internal dialogue that criticizes, belittles, and diminishes. It's the ingrained habit of self-abandonment. This spiritual exhaustion is the soul's desperate plea for attention, a signal that the external world has become too demanding and the internal world too neglected. It speaks to the profound wisdom of William James, who recognized the intricate connection between our inner world and our outer experience. When our inner world is in turmoil, our capacity for outward action diminishes. It's the silent protest of a spirit yearning for wholeness. The character battling this pervasive exhaustion often embodies the archetype of the martyr or the unseen hero, silently bearing burdens that are not truly theirs to carry. The theme is undoubtedly the cost of unaddressed trauma and eroded self-worth, manifesting as a deceptive form of inertia. This individual, often driven by unconscious patterns, projects their internalized criticisms onto their own perceived laziness. To break free from this cycle, you must dare to descend into the depths of your own shadow work. Begin by acknowledging the subtle ways you abandon yourself. Where do you say yes when you mean no? Where do you silence your voice to keep the peace? This is not about blaming your past. It's about understanding its profound impact on your present energy levels. Cultivate radical self-compassion, recognizing that your exhaustion is a logical consequence of a spirit that has been overtaxed by unseen battles. Your healing journey begins with the brave act of looking inward, of reclaiming your innate worth, independent of external validation. It's about understanding that your capacity for action is directly proportional to your capacity for self-love. What hidden burdens are you carrying that are draining your spiritual reserves? We've delved into the profound spiritual exhaustion that masquerades as laziness, uncovering its roots in societal pressures and the unaddressed wounds of our past. But how do we bridge the chasm between this deep weariness and a renewed sense of purpose and vitality? The answer lies not in relentless self-improvement, but in the radical act of redefining productivity and embracing the often uncomfortable journey of individuation. What if true energy isn't about doing more, but about being more authentically? The conventional wisdom often dictates that if you're tired, you simply need to work harder, push through, and overcome. This relentless emphasis on external achievement, however, often overlooks the internal landscape. It's here that the wisdom of Carl Rogers, with his focus on unconditional positive regard and self-actualization, becomes profoundly relevant. Rogers believed that human beings have an inherent tendency to develop their capacities in ways that maintain or enhance the organism. When we are spiritually exhausted, it's often because this natural drive has been stifled, suffocated by conditions of worth imposed by ourselves and others. The perceived laziness is not a deficiency of will, but a symptom of a spirit desperately attempting to realign with its authentic self. Consider the story of Leo, a promising young architect who found himself increasingly disengaged from his work. He'd spend hours staring at his computer screen, his mind buzzing with ideas he couldn't quite grasp, his hands frozen over the keyboard. His colleagues saw a man losing his edge, perhaps succumbing to the pressures of the industry. Leo, however, felt a profound emptiness. He loved design, but the corporate world's relentless pursuit of efficiency and profit had stripped the joy from his craft. He was designing structures that felt soulless, devoid of the human connection he craved. One evening, after another day of feeling utterly unproductive, Leo stumbled upon an old sketchbook from his university days. Within its pages were designs that spoke of nature, of fluid forms, of spaces that invited contemplation and peace. A forgotten passion stirred within him, a desire to create not just buildings, but experiences. Yet, the thought of pursuing this unconventional path filled him with dread. It wasn't laziness that held him back. It was the formidable shadow of societal expectations, the fear of financial instability, and the internalized voice that told him his artistic whims were impractical. This internal conflict, the battle between his authentic self and his conditioned self, was the true source of his profound fatigue. His exhaustion was the manifestation of a deep existential crisis, an Ericksonian struggle with identity versus role confusion. He was playing a role that no longer fit, and the strain of maintaining this facade was immense. His perceived laziness was a defense mechanism, a spiritual shutdown in the face of profound internal dissonance. He was, in essence, protesting the violation of his own being. The pivotal moment for Leo came not through forced labor, but through a deliberate act of stillness. He began to practice Stoicism, not as a rigid dogma, but as a framework for discerning what was within his control and what was not. He started with simple acts, acknowledging his feelings without judgment, stepping away from the demands of his current job for short periods, and allowing himself to dream without immediate pressure to act. He realized that his exhaustion was a symptom of his lack of psychological flexibility, his inability to adapt his behavior to align with his values, rather than rigid external demands. This wasn't about quitting his job overnight, but about a gradual process of internal realignment. He started sketching again, not for clients, but for himself. He sought out workshops on sustainable architecture, not for career advancement, but out of genuine interest. These small acts, seemingly insignificant in the grand scheme, began to re-energize him. The laziness began to recede as his authentic self started to re-emerge, piece by painful, beautiful piece. His internal dialogue shifted from self-condemnation to curiosity, from "I should be doing more" to "What does my spirit truly need?" Leo embodies the archetype of the seeker, a soul navigating the complex journey of individuation away from the societal script and towards their authentic calling. His laziness was a profound spiritual protest against a life that no longer served his deepest values. The core theme is the reclamation of personal agency and vitality through authentic self-actualization, demonstrating that true energy arises from alignment, not mere effort. This struggle highlights the subtle yet powerful influence of the anima/animus in guiding us towards our true purpose. If you resonate with Leo's story, understand that your fatigue is a potent call to action, an urgent summons from your inner self. It is an invitation to engage in a profound reevaluation of your life's direction. Embrace the wisdom of Carl Rogers and cultivate unconditional positive regard for yourself. Recognize that true productivity isn't measured solely by external output, but by the resonance between your actions and your core being. Begin by asking yourself, where am I living a life that isn't truly mine? What parts of my authentic self have I suppressed to fit in, to please others, or to meet external expectations? This is your profound opportunity to engage in shadow work, to bring to light those hidden aspects of yourself that are draining your vital energy. The solution is not to push harder, but to listen more deeply. Realign your actions with your values, cultivate compassion for your own journey, and dare to embrace the magnificent, messy process of becoming authentically you. Your energy will follow. The end.